I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Knesset greenlights new Jewish homes in Jerusalem. Hamas makes some shocking new statements on Palestinian unity. And don't watch this show if you're on a diet, because we're dishing out the goods on this year's Open Restaurants Festival. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. The Israeli government has just approved 176 new homes in Jerusalem. This enormous expansion means the neighborhood of Nof Zion is about to become the largest Jewish sector in all of East Jerusalem. Though the approvals have been applauded by many, the decision has already received harsh criticism from all over the world. That's because East Jerusalem is considered by some to be Palestinian territory, illegally annexed by Israel after the Six-Day War in 1967. The Peace Now NGO has slammed the move, saying that the construction of a large settlement in the heart of a Palestinian neighborhood will be a severe blow to Jerusalem and to the chance to achieve the two-state solution. But Jerusalem's mayor remains hopeful that the new expansion is actually reunifying the city through direct action.
ירושלים היא עיר אחת, היא מאוחדת, יגורו בה כל האוכלוסיות, גם ערבים וגם יהודים, אבל היא תהיה בריבונות יהודית לעולמי עד.
East Jerusalem is home to three of the holiest sites of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, including the Western Wall, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So it's no wonder that any new real estate there is a big deal. Well, Syria has been accused of carrying out deadly and illegal sarin gas attacks on its own people, actions that Israel has harshly condemned. Well, the UN has been investigating Syria's use of chemical weapons ever since those horrific images emerged, but now Russia has put an end to that, all by using its veto power to officially end the probe into Syria's suspected chemical weapons attack. This is an extremely controversial move, one that the world's leaders have immediately slammed.
We are not deceived nor deterred, however, and we call on all members of this council to join us in rejecting these attacks on the Jim. These attacks are not intended to get us closer to the truth. They are intended to hide the truth. They are not designed to get us closer to accountability for chemical weapons use in Syria. They are designed to shield the perpetrators for some of the worst war crimes of our century.
American ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, has just articulated what many are feeling by saying Russia has once again demonstrated it will do whatever it takes to ensure the barbaric Assad regime never faces consequences for its continued use of chemical weapons. Russia's veto comes less than 2 days before the Council was set to release its findings on the alleged gas attacks carried out by Syria last April. The UN was about to vote on extending the probe for another year, and when Russia saw that it didn't have the votes, used its last resort veto power to get the results it clearly wanted. A separate investigation confirmed that sarin had been used against the Syrian people last June, prompting global outrage and even a U.S. airstrike against a Syrian airbase. The Israeli government under Prime Minister Netanyahu has just renegotiated details with African countries that would allow the government to sidestep court decisions and forcibly deport African migrants to the nations that have agreed to absorb them. Conservative activist and CEO of Hebrew City, Mai Golan, joins us in the studio with more on this. Now, Mai, the original agreements only allowed for absorption of migrants if they were not forced out. This ensured that Israel would respect the wishes of for the security of the migrant, no?
Yeah. The original agreements basically said that you cannot deport an illegal migrant if he's not willingly wants to go back. And the problem with that was that none of them obviously willingly wants to go back because they came here to be work immigrants. They came here to make more money. So it didn't work. And once it didn't work, the country realized that she can maybe offer them a third country. But they still didn't want to go to a third country, which then the whole bluff of refugees basically exploded. So when the government saw that, the NGOs and the left movements are going to the Supreme Court judges and petitioning for every little thing, sorry, then she realized that now it's time to do something. And I can tell you, Natasha, we've been fighting for 7 years. 7 long, hard years, me and the people from the Hebrew City NGO, we've been protesting, we have been arrested, we have petitioned, we have made lectures and tours. Nothing moved until the Prime Minister has finally decided to come, to the South Tel Aviv area to see the residents. And when I toured with Benjamin Netanyahu in South Tel Aviv, I told him, you are not seeing the reality because they sterilized the area for him. But hopefully he will pursue this new agreement and not let the Supreme Court judges rule it off again.
Well, now here's my question for you. There are many of these people that are in fact refugees. I mean, you said that this is a cover-up of sorts. What happens to these people?
Listen, Natasha, we have 2 groups in the migrants. We have Eritreans and we have Sudanese. Part of the Sudanese, from the part that borders with Darfur, are really refugees. And I will be the first one to tell you that I will accept real refugees to Israel. But when we're talking about the Eritreans that we're seeing here in the background, the mass of the immigrants here, the ones who are bringing 5,000 birth of children in a year, the ones who are opening illegal businesses. Just yesterday, an Eritrean threw a block on a 78-year-old man who dared to pass at Levinsky Garden. These are not people who are refugees, Natasha. These are people that should go back to their country or to a third country. They cannot claim for the fact of them being refugee, which is a complete lie and has no base to it whatsoever.
Well, but there are a lot of people that are coming into the country because they're not able to support their families financially. I mean, it's a different type of issue, and Israel has a certain obligation to people in need. I mean, we are ultimately a country, or a country made out of what were once refugees.
Yeah.
And sometimes still are. So what is the obligation of the country to help those in need?
I'm sorry, I completely disagree with this, with people who dare to compare the Eritreans to the Holocaust people, or, what we suffered as the Jewish nation. Natasha, these people come from a country who has diplomatic relations with Israel, who has only 16 universities in the capital, Asmara of Eritrea. These are not poor people. Maybe, yes, and I will agree, they are coming to better their economic status in Israel. No doubt about it. Africa is not a rich country, but we are not obligated to be the asylum for the poor people of the world. We can hardly deal with the poor people in Israel. This, we cannot accept, what did the world learn from this Eritrean? Now we have tens of thousands of Georgians. We have tens of thousands of Mongolians. We have tens of thousands of non-Jewish Russians. People who are coming here from Ukraine, from many countries, who are coming here and seeing that the Eritreans are, don't care about the law whatsoever, and they understand that there's a country here that basically doesn't enforce the law. So what do? They come here with a tourist visa, they tear up the ticket, and they're claiming for refugee status. We cannot accept that.
So let's talk about what you believe needs to happen right now. What is the incentive to keep asking and paying out to migrants who leave on their own if Israel can force them out? And how would Israel be able to force them out?
So the new agreements basically say that if an infiltrator doesn't want to go back to his country or to a third country that is offered for him, then he will be forced to get out to one of these options. And if he doesn't want, what happened until now, he would go back. He would go back to Tel Aviv, to South Tel Aviv, do whatever he wants. Now Israel will be able to force him back to one of these options, another country. But the problem is, Natasha, we've been hearing for the last 2 days about this wonderful solution, and I can tell you that I'm not opening the bottles of champagne yet, because I know for a fact that as we are speaking right now, the left movement's lawyers and the NGOs are writing the petitions against this ruling of the government. And I tell you, we cannot keep living in a country where we go to vote in a democratic, elections. We choose our people to represent and protect us. And then, minority of movements are going to the Supreme Court judges who have a very radical left agenda, and they just rule out everything. This is not a democracy, this is a dictatorship. And we must return the balance between the people who judge and the people who make the laws. Right now, we are living under what I call the Supreme Court terror, because they cannot keep living in the ivory buildings and dictate to us how to live when they have no connection to what's going on in South Tel Aviv.
All right. Well, this is conservative activist Mai Golan.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming in. I think next time we're going to have to bring somebody to challenge you.
I've been challenging. They've been trying to challenge me for 6 years. None of them can, and none of them will could.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Iran has just given a death sentence to a man accused of being an Israeli Mossad spy. Israel has affirmed no comment policy on accusations like this, but Iran has convicted the man of leaking intel to Israel, which led to the death of at least 4 scientists and is further disrupting Iran's plans to obtain nuclear weapons. At least 4 nuclear scientists were killed between 2010 and 2012. According to Iran, this was actually a skillfully organized Mossad operation designed to disrupt their nuclear program. Iran now believes that one of their own leaked the top-secret intel to Israel that led to the murders. The suspect in question is Ahmadreza Jalali, an Iranian doctor with ties to Sweden. He was arrested last year and imprisoned on espionage charges without access to a lawyer, conditions that Amnesty International say were completely illegal. And now an Iranian court has just slapped Jalali with a death sentence, labeling him a Mossad agent. Israel doesn't comment on accusations like this, though the U.S. has denied there was any American involvement in the death of the scientists. Amnesty will continue picketing for the doctor's release, but in light of this sentence, things are looking grim. Hamas has just made a potentially major reversal during the ongoing efforts in the Palestinian unity deal with Fatah. Although the terror group is still refusing to dismantle its army, Hamas's leader is now saying that all its soldiers should fall under the umbrella of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. With us now to explain is ILTV's Aaron Porras. Now, Aaron, this is very different from what we've been hearing so far. How big of a reversal is this?
It's kind of hard to tell, because we've gone through every stage in these unification talks with Hamas and Fatah when it comes to the military. First, despite the opposition of Israel and the United States and even Fatah with the head Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, they all said, there's no way we're going to allow you to have a military. You have to dismantle it. And Hamas at first said outright no. Then they said, we'll be autonomous like Hezbollah. Then then they'll say that they, maybe we'll reduce it or whatever. And now they're saying, okay, all 25,000 of our militants are going to be under the Palestinian Authority. So, we really just don't know.
So while the move isn't to dismantle, it's got to be better to have the military under Fatah than Hamas, no?
Perhaps. The truth is that we really just don't know because, we really don't know any of the details of that unification. And it seems as though that Hamas is the Hamas military is just changing hands, but not changing its mission. The unification talks, the one thing that we're sure of is that the Palestinians are unifying against Israel. It's the one thing that we're absolutely positive, especially with the rhetoric coming out of Fatah. All
right, well, let's check out your report.
So far, Hamas has refused to waver even slightly on the issue of keeping its massive army intact. But shifting it to the PLO, which is mostly dominated by President Abbas's Fatah government and headed by Abbas himself, is almost a total 180. Israel will not negotiate with a unified Palestinian government unless it dissolves Hamas's army and recognizes Israel's right to exist. But we're still very far from meeting those conditions. Complicating the deal is the fact that another Arab nation has just entered the fray in a major way. Qatar, possibly Hamas's biggest supporter and financier, has just confirmed it will build a new presidential headquarters in Gaza for the forthcoming government. It's a very significant and symbolic gesture, indicating Qatar may have plans to keep itself in all Palestinian affairs. The PA is set to officially take over control of all Gaza border crossings in less than a week, making reconciliation a very concrete reality in the near future.
Now, we have some very disturbing reports coming in from Italy. Italian soccer fans have just posted anti-Semitic slogans at a soccer match to psych out a rival team, along with stickers of a photoshopped Anne Frank. A police investigation is currently underway, and the Italian government will now require a passage from the diary of Anne Frank to be read at every soccer match in Italy. This incident is unfortunately nothing new for Italian soccer. Fans of Italy's Lazio soccer team have notoriously used anti-Semitic and other racist behavior in the past. 20 years ago, Lazio superfans known as Ultras targeted a rival team during a match with an enormous banner that read, "Auschwitz is your homeland, the ovens are your homes." The stickers just found at a soccer stadium are equally as appalling. They feature Anne Frank, arguably the most well-known Holocaust victim in history, wearing the rival Roma team's jersey, along with a quote that read, "Roma fans are Jews." Italy's sports minister has just announced that in light of the sick discovery, a passage from the diary of Anne Frank will now be read at the opening of every Italian soccer match from now on. It reads, "I see the world being slowly transformed into a wilderness. I hear the approaching thunder that one day will destroy us too. I feel the suffering of millions, and yet when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better. That this cruelty too shall end, that peace and tranquility will return once more." So sad. All right, well, turning to some more positive news for Israeli locals, the Israeli Labor Committee has just raised the monthly minimum wage. Starting on December 1st, the Israeli minimum wage will stand at 5,300 shekels per month, or $1,513. That's a 300 shekel boost from 5,000 shekels, marking the fourth increase in the last 3 years. And get this, the minimum wage should increase by a substantial 23% in another 3 years from now. In December of 2014, Israel's employers' organizations agreed on a 3-stage income increase from 4,300 shekels to 5,000. And it looks like that number is going to keep on climbing. Statistics show there are 800,000 families in Israel with at least one breadwinner who earns the minimum wage. And Israeli Finance Minister Moshe Kahlon says continuing to raise the minimum wage is a, quote, direct continuation of Israel's work to narrow gaps and strengthen the working population. In a country such as Israel, existing in a state of constant tension and ceaseless wars, art plays a significant role in establishing and shaping the social discourse. But don't take it from us, that's the view of the Herzliya Museum of Contemporary Art, which shares the perspective of dozens of artists every year by hosting more than 50 solo exhibitions. Well, joining me now is Tal Slutzker, the artist behind the current solo exhibition entitled Now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
So tell us about this exhibition. What is the message that you're trying to portray?
First, you just overwhelmed me with this introduction. It was amazing. The message is basically a message of individualism, of being in a constant search of one's own language, and maybe the interaction between a few languages, the visual language and the literal language, because I explore a few themes. One of them is literature in art.
Interesting. And tell me, what are some of the pieces that we see? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of images here, but are you painting? Are you sculpting? What kind of artwork?
I'm a painter working in a few fields because I'm a philosopher, and I sometimes explore different mediums so I can understand my own aesthetics better.
Interesting. So there's a range. So it's, and this is you here sculpting.
Yes, exactly. I do sculpture and sometimes castings. And this is a painting from my period in Jerusalem. I reside in Tel Aviv, and there was a time when I visited the Herzliya Museum of Art a few times as a child, and that influenced me a lot in my goals as an artist and my willingness to be an artist.
Well, so you've been painting and sculpting since you were a child then, huh?
Yes.
What would you say was the biggest influence in terms of the future of your art career, besides obviously visiting this museum?
Major influences? The movement of realist painting and sculpture in Israel that is very influenced by Spanish and American painting, but there is an Israeli art scene. Mm-hmm. We're not exactly doing the same thing, you see.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that people don't necessarily think of art when they think of Israel, but there is a booming art scene here, right? What makes Israeli art unique?
We have, for example, our own color. Israeli painting has its own color. I write poetry. When I write it in Hebrew, and I'm coming up with a new book. A poetry book. I'm doing that with my friends Yoav Gilboa and Amir Zomer under the guidance of Gavrel Moked, my professor of philosophy in Achshav. And so that's why I think it's really important for one to see his own world through his own eyes, and that's what a realist painter does.
Very interesting. All right, so where and when can we see now? It's in the Herzliya Museum, correct, of Contemporary Art?
Yes.
And when is the exhibition going to be taking place?
It takes place right now.
Perfect, okay. And it's, let's see, opened on September 16th of 2017, but it's closing in February.
Yes.
Oh, so we have quite some time for all of our viewers here who want to check it out, right?
Sure, you're invited to visit the museum and explore my work and see the movie, Painter of Shadows, that appears also on YouTube. It's a documentary about me and my work.
All right, well, for those of our viewers who would like to check out Tal's incredible work, go to the Herzliya Museum of Contemporary Art. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Get this, Israel is feeding thousands upon thousands of pelicans that are making a pit stop as they migrate towards Africa. But as much as I'd like to say the move is out of wholehearted generosity, there's actually an agenda here. The Israeli Agriculture Ministry wants to protest local fisheries from our hungry feathered friends. This isn't actually the first time that Israel has made it its mission to feed the traveling great white pelicans. The beautiful birds fly over Israel every year for a whole 3 months, and the Israeli Agriculture Ministry wants to centralize their feeding ground at a central Israeli reservoir so they don't get local fish businesses into trouble.
When they pass here, they make a lot of damage in the pools of fish, so we feeding them. It's about 400,000 pelicans that pass above us. They eat here in Emek Hefer and in the north in Agmon Achula, and then they have enough food to continue directly to South Sudan in Africa.
Previously, the ministry has tried to get out of funding the project, claiming it wasn't responsible for feeding migrating animals passing through from Europe to Africa. And believe me, there are a lot of them. Luckily, though, they had a change of heart after pressure from farmers and environmentalists, so it looks like our visiting pelicans are going to be able to continue their journey on full stomachs. It's amazing, right? All right, as if we don't talk about food enough on our show, Jerusalem's Open Restaurants Festival is back in full force this year. ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh has all of the juicy details, so let's take a look.
After 2 years running and gaining major success, the Open Restaurant Festival in Jerusalem is back and starting next month in the capital. The main focus is for restaurants all across Jerusalem to open their doors for dinners, special events, and even workshops. It has been reported that celebrity chef Asaf Granit will be leading a tour around the Israel Museum. 3 Jerusalem chefs, a Christian, a Muslim, and a Jew, will all cook together. And even on the Jerusalem light rail, there'll be a party with live music and snacks aboard. The festival runs from November 14th to the 18th, and the opening event to kick off the festival is a celebration of the 50th anniversary of Café Kadosh, one of Jerusalem's oldest and more famous bakery and coffee houses. It's even been reported that there will be a tour of the Old City on November 16th, all conducted in English. But the best part? The festival is suitable for all ages. There are workshops available to learn how to make pasta, ice cream sandwiches, Moroccan desserts, sushi, and a kids-themed tour of the Shuk. So if you're waiting for a special event to head over to Jerusalem, here it is. You definitely won't want to miss out on this food festival.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day, money. It makes the world go round. So today's word is hachnasa, which means income in Hebrew. They say you should live your life according to your hachnasa, which is why it's probably good advice to never depend on a single hachnasa. Rather, make an investment to create a second source. That's Warren Buffett for you guys. And even though a large hachnasa may seem like the best recipe for happiness, remember your income can be directly related to your philosophy and not the economy. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be clear to partly cloudy with a low of 66 or 19 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow is expected to remain clear to partly cloudy with a slight rise in temperatures and with a high of 85 or 29 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.51 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.